The ocean on planet Thalasser did not act like any normal sea. Waves did not crash down toward the sand. Instead, they lifted, like long blue ribbons climbing into the sky. Fish swam upward, not downward. Broken ships were not buried underwater. They floated high above, like lost ghosts hanging in the air. People in nearby towns had learned one rule: do not go near the upward ocean. Those who did were never seen again. Fishermen spoke in low voices. Children were warned every night. Travelers walked faster when they saw the strange coast. They said, "The water belonged to an old temple under the sea. A temple where gravity was wrong, where the world was upside down, where time itself felt like thick mud." They said the ocean pulled souls upward and never gave them back. Evan Cole stood on a black stone cliff and watched the rising sea. He was a human diver, tall, quiet, and calm. He had worked on many worlds, in cold oceans and boiling vents, in caves full of poison gas, and under ice that never melted. But even he had never seen water behave like this. His suit was heavy and scratched, showing many years of work. His eyes were sharp and tired at the same time. Behind him stood guards in shining silver armor. They were not human. Their skin was pale blue, and long fins grew along their arms. They were soldiers of the alien king of Thalasser. Their voices shook as they spoke, even though they tried to sound brave. "Many divers went in," one guard said softly. None returned. Evan did not answer at first. He kept looking at the rising sea, like he was listening to it. The sound was strange. It did not roar. It hummed, like a deep voice calling from under everything. Another guard said, "The princess is still inside. Somewhere in the temple. The king believes she lives." The word princess finally made Evan turn. He had heard the story before coming, but now he heard it again from shaking lips. The princess had gone on a sacred visit to the underwater temple. Then the temple changed. Gravity reversed, water lifted. All exits closed. Her guards were torn away from her and lost in the upward currents. No message had come since. The king had offered treasure. The king had offered ships. The king had even offered land to anyone who saved his only child. But Evan had not come for treasure. He had come because of one simple promise he made long ago: never leave someone behind. If there was even a small chance to save them. He walked toward the cliff edge. Wind pulled at him in the wrong direction, toward the sky. Not the sea below. The air tasted like salt and metal. Above him, far above, the broken mast of a ship slowly turned, like a slow-moving cloud. It should have sunk. Instead, it hung there forever. A thin old priest of the alien court stepped forward. His hands glowed faintly with blue light. He drew ancient shapes in the air. "The temple waits," the priest whispered. "It chooses who may enter. It also chooses who may never leave." Evan simply nodded. He checked his oxygen, his lines, his small tools. He did not wear big weapons. Human divers learned long ago that the ocean usually did not care about guns. The ocean cared about patience, steady breath, and will. He asked only one question, and his voice was low. "How long has she been inside?" The answer came like a weight. 10 days. 10 days in reversed gravity. 10 days with strange beasts and falling sky water. 10 days of fear, hunger, and cold. For a moment, Evan imagined a young royal girl alone in dark stone halls, calling out, hearing only echoes answer back. He had seen soldiers lost in caves. He had seen miners trapped under rock. He knew the sound of people trying not to cry. He tightened the straps of his helmet. "Then I should go," he said simply. The guard stepped back. The priest whispered a prayer in a language full of bubbles and long tones. Far away, horns sounded. Across the city, people gathered on roofs and cliffs, watching the human diver take his first steps toward the impossible ocean. Evan did not jump down into the water. He jumped up The moment he left the rock, the upward pull grabbed him. The sea reached for him like a living hand. His body shot toward the wall of blue above the world. Up became down. Down became up. His stomach twisted, but his mind stayed steady. He had lived through storms before. He would live through this. 1-2. He broke through this strange shining surface, not falling into water, but rising into it. Light bent, colors stretched like threads. Bubbles slid downward past his face, even though he was moving up. He felt the deep, heavy silence of a place that did not follow normal rules. Below him, the real sky shrank. Above him, the dark sea world opened like a giant mouth. Somewhere inside that upside-down ocean waited a temple made of old stone and forgotten power. Somewhere inside that temple waited a frightened alien princess, and as the world flipped around him, one clear thought stayed in Evan's heart. He would not leave her behind. Evan did not know how long he rose through the strange water. There was no clear up or down anymore. His compass spun slowly, confused. His training told him to stay calm, so he breathed slow and steady. Human lungs, he knew, were brave when the mind was calmed out around him. The world looked like a dream turned inside out. Thick blue water stretched in every direction, but it felt open like air. Far above, or maybe far below, broken ships floated. At odd angles like toys forgotten in the sky. Ropes hung loose. Sails waved slowly, not from wind, but from strange, unseen currents. He turned his head and finally saw it. The temple did not sit on the seafloor. It did not stand on pillars. The temple hung in the middle of the upward sea, like a dark stone island that refused to fall anywhere. Long stairways reached out from it and then bent backward, swallowed by blue light. Tall towers pointed not toward the ground, but toward nothing. It was huge, silent and old, and even the water around it seemed afraid. Evan drifted closer, using small bursts from his suit to guide himself. Tail-shaped shadows swam past him, drifting upward like birds in slow motion. Their eyes glowed faintly as they watched him pass. Even the animals here did not behave like creatures of any normal ocean. He reached a wide archway of black stone. Symbols were carved along the entrance, bright like wet moonlight. He did not know the language, but the meaning felt clear in his body. Enter if you dare. Leave if you can. He crossed the arch. The change was instant. The water inside the temple felt heavier and thicker. Sound dropped away, as if the temple swallowed it. The walls were long and curved, covered in faint light that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Small stones floated beside him in strange still lines, trapped between forces he could not see. He saw marks of a fight, a broken spear, a silver crown piece, a cracked mask from the royal guard. He touched the mask gently. The edges were sharp, new. Something bad had happened here, and not long ago. His jaw tightened. He pressed forward. In one great hall, bodies drifted. They were not whole. Armor was twisted, bent by pressure and broken gravity. The guards who had come with the princess had lost their battle against the temple itself. They floated like fallen leaves, turning slowly in the upward current. Evan closed his eyes for a short moment. He did not know their names, but he gave them respect in silence. Then he moved on. He did not have time for long mourning. Someone was still alive somewhere inside these halls, and every second mattered. He turned a corner and felt something else. He was being watched, not by one thing, but by the temple. The stone itself seemed aware. He could feel it testing him, pulling at his weight, pushing at his suit. One step pulled him sideways. The next step lifted him upward. Floors became ceilings without warning. Yet he kept his balance, letting his body move while his mind stayed still. He reached a room shaped like a circle. In the middle of the room floated a small golden band. It was thin, elegant, and carved with the royal crest of Thalasar, a princess's bracelet. Evan caught it carefully and looked around. She had been here. Maybe she still was. He felt a sudden sharp feeling in his chest. Not fear, but hope. Then he heard it. A voice stopped at first, tired, afraid, echoing through the walls. Help. It was not in human language, but the meaning was clear in the tone. It was the kind of voice someone uses after crying for a long time, when they are almost out of strength. Evan turned slowly, scanning shadows. "Hello," he said gently. "I'm here." No answer. Just the low hum of the temple and that feeling of eyes everywhere. He moved toward the sound, following narrow halls that twisted like vines. Light bent at odd angles. Sometimes he felt lighter than paper. Other times his limbs felt like stone. The temple was testing him again, but he kept moving. Then something touched his shoulder. It was not water. It was a hand. He spun around fast, but not with panic. His light swung through the blue darkness, and the shape behind him finally stepped forward. It was not a monster. It was a girl, tall, thin, silver, marks across her skin that glowed softly. Her eyes were bright and afraid, but there was strength deep inside them. Tangled royal ribbons floated around her like faded stars. She looked half like a princess and half like someone who had survived storms all alone. She stared at him in shock, human. Here, for one long moment. Neither of them moved. Then the temple lights dimmed, and the water began to vibrate with a deep, distant roar. Something else was waking up. Asterisk for a heartbeat. Time seemed to stop. The girl's glowing eyes stayed fixed on Evan, wide with surprise and disbelief. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but the words did not come. She had not seen another living face in many days. She had spoken to walls, to shadows, to her own echo. Now suddenly, there was a human standing in front of her in a heavy dive suit, breathing slow and steady like this strange world meant nothing to him. She floated back a little, as if unsure whether he was real. "You." She whispered in her own language. Her voice trembled but carried pride deep in it, the voice of someone raised to command, not beg. Evan did not understand each word, but he understood the feeling. He lifted his hand slowly, open, showing he was no threat. His movements were calm and careful, like offering peace to a frightened animal that still had claws. "I'm here to help," he said gently. She tilted her head. Her eyes traced the human suit, the helmet, the scratches that told many stories. Then she gave a small, tired laugh, the kind people give when they are too exhausted to fully trust hope. "A human," she said, as if it were the strangest idea in all the galaxies. She did not back away again. Instead, she floated closer, studying him like a puzzle. "You came inside the temple?" He nodded. "For you." The words were simple. There was no speech of reward, no mention of the king, no titles. "Just for you." Something in those two words broke through the wall she had built around herself. For days she had fought fear by pretending she was not afraid. Now suddenly, someone had reached her. She blinked hard, like she might cry but refused to let tears fall. "I am Princess Nerissa of Thalassar," she said at last, straightening herself, even though she was weak. "Daughter of the Tide King." Her voice shook only once, then steadied. Even in floating water and broken gravity, she carried the dignity of a crown. Evan inclined his head just a little, not a deep royal bow, but a quiet mark of respect. "Vavan," he replied simply, "human diver." She watched him again, then whispered, "They told me humans were loud, always talking. You are quiet." He gave a faint smile. "I saved the noise for later." For the first time in 10 days, she smiled too, but the soft moment ended fast. The temple pulsed again. A deep tremor rolled through the walls, like the slow breath of something huge sleeping nearby. The light strips in the stone flickered. Loose tiles twisted in the strange currents. Far below or far above, an echoing rumble shook everything. Her face changed. Confidence fell away and raw fear showed. It is waking. Evan looked around. What? She turned her face toward the dark hall behind her. The Guardian, her hands clenched. Her voice dropped lower. This is not only a temple, it is a prison. Long ago, my people trapped enemies here using reversed gravity. They built a heart at the center of the temple. The heart controls the pull of the world in this place. Up becomes down. Down becomes up. No prisoner can ever escape. She touched the wall, and it seemed to pulse back under her palm. But the prison learned, she continued quietly. It began to think. It began to choose. It chose to keep me. There it was, the secret she had carried alone all this time. She was not only lost, she was trapped on purpose. Her voice became even softer. The Guardian protects the heart. It is part stone, part creature, part anger. If it wakes fully, the heart will break. The temple will fall. Not down, not up, but in every direction. Everything inside will be crushed. She swallowed, and for the first time she looked young, not royal, not powerful, just a girl who had not yet lived her life. I tried to reach the heart, she whispered. Only royal blood can open it. But the paths change, gravity changes. I could not do it alone. Evan listened to every word without interrupting. His eyes were steady, his breathing never rushed. Where others might have panicked, he simply began to plan. Then we go together, he said. She stared at him. You do not understand. Number. One has ever escaped this place. He shrugged lightly, as if that fact were small. Someone has to be first. Silence fell again, but this silence felt different. Not empty, full of a new possibility that frightened and warmed her at the same time. The temple trembled harder. A low, distant roar rolled through the reversed ocean. Like a mountain grinding its teeth, the water around them vibrated. Stones shook loose and drifted past like slow-falling stars. Her eyes widened. It is closer. Evan reached out his hand to her, not like a subject to a princess, not like a hero to a reward, like a person to another person who should not be alone. She looked at his hand. For a moment, pride fought fear. Then she placed her glowing fingers into his strong, gloved palm. Then we run, she whispered. They pushed forward together into the twisting halls as the Guardian of the reversed sea began to wake fully behind them. The sound came first, not like any animal roar Evan had heard before, but like stone mountains dragging across each other. It rolled through the temple walls, through the water, through their bones. Even the light seemed to shiver. Princess Nerissa tightened her fingers around Evan's, and for the first time, she did not try to hide her fear. The Guardian is fully awake, she whispered. The corridor ahead twisted like a ribbon, curling upward into darkness. They pushed forward, fighting shifting gravity with every step. Sometimes their feet pulled toward the ceiling. Sometimes their bodies drifted sideways like leaves in strange wind. Evan kept his grip steady, anchoring the princess whenever the temple tried to tear her away. The halls changed as they moved. Columns bent in impossible shapes. Stairways led upward, then folded back on themselves like broken ladders. Old mosaics glowed on the walls, showing battles from long ago. Armies being swallowed by the temple. Prisoners floating forever in endless halls. Kings watching with cold eyes. The temple was proud of its work. It showed its cruelty like artwork. They reached a vast chamber. Here, the water felt colder and heavier. Huge stone chains stretched from wall to wall, crossing the room like spiderwebs. Between them, in the center of the chamber, something enormous moved. The Guardian. It was not one thing. It was many terrible ideas held together. Its back looked like a jagged cliff. Plates of ancient stone grew from its skin like armor. Its eyes were deep cracks full of red light. Long limbs stretched and curled. each one ending in claws sharp enough to cut rock. When it opened its mouth, Evan saw teeth made of broken temple pillars, but the strangest part was how it moved. It did not swim. It fell upward, then downward, then sideways, crashing through reversed currents with terrible grace. Gravity did not control it. It controlled gravity around it. Dust, stones, pieces of broken guard armor spun around it in wild orbits. It saw them. The red lines in its stone face brightened. The water shook. Nerissa grabbed Evan's arm. "Do not fight it like a beast," she said quickly. "It is part of the temple. It knows the paths. It knows the pulls. If you move wrong, gravity will tear you in half." Evan's reply was simple. "Then we move right." Most people would have frozen. Most would have screamed or given up. Evan simply studied the creature the same way he studied a storm at sea, not with fear, but with attention. He watched how loose stones moved around it. He watched how currents bent when it turned. He watched where gravity reversed and snapped. Back again, he saw a pattern. "Stay close," he said softly. They pushed off together as the Guardian lunged. The world turned wild. Up became down, then up again. The Guardian's huge limbs smashed through a column, and pieces of shattered stone spun past their heads like slow bullets. Evan twisted his body at the last second, pulling the princess through a narrow gap between currents. A second too late, and they would have been crushed. The Guardian roared again, angry that they still lived. The temple itself answered. Floors cracked and drifted like broken rafts. Hallways bent into spirals. The whole building wanted them gone. Nerissa pointed through the chaos. "The heart lies beyond the inner ring. We must cross this chamber." Evan nodded. He did not waste breath on fear words. He noticed chains stretched around the Guardian like loose ropes. They were old. They were part of its prison. They did not bind it fully, but they still mattered. He had an idea. "Can you change the pull here?" he asked. She shook her head. "Only the heart obeys me." "Then the Guardian will help us," he said. She stared. "It wants us dead." He smiled slightly. "It doesn't have to know it's helping." He pushed off toward one of the giant chains. The Guardian followed, furious, its movement, bending gravity around them so sharply that Nerissa nearly lost consciousness. Evan tightened his hold and kept her steady, counting the pull rhythms the way sailors count waves. At the right moment, he dodged. The Guardian did not. Its massive limbs slammed into the chain. Gravity shifted at the same time, twisting the chain around its stone plates like a trap rope. The creature howled, a sound like mountains breaking, and thrashed, tangling itself further. Nerissa stared at Evan with new eyes. "You tricked it." "Humans are good at stubborn problems," he said calmly. "And knots. They didn't have long. The chain would not hold forever." "Go," Evan urged. They shot across the chamber while the Guardian fought the binding chain. The breeze swirled. Around them, shields, stone, bone, memories of battles long ended. The path ahead opened into a tall, narrow passage filled with shifting light. Beyond it lay the inner ring of the temple. Just as they reached the exit, the chain snapped. The sound cracked through the chamber like thunder. The Guardian broke free. In one furious motion, it hurled itself toward them, dragging half the chamber's gravity with it. Columns shattered. Floors turned sideways. The passage warped as if made of soft clay. The last thing Evan saw before the world twisted again was the Guardian rushing after them like a falling mountain that could fall in any direction at once. "We're not done yet," he said quietly. And the temple roared in answer. The passage spat them out into another world inside the temple. Here, nothing stayed still. Long bridges of stone hung broken in the water, turning slowly like giant leaves. Rooms drifted past each other, sometimes touching, sometimes sliding away again. Waterfalls did not fall. They climbed like pale smoke toward unseen ceilings. It looked beautiful and wrong at the same time, like a dream that forgot the rules of waking life. Evan and Princess Nerissa floated at the edge of this moving maze while the walls trembled behind them. The Guardian's roar rolled closer, echoing through every broken hall. The temple was no longer only awake, it was angry. Nerissa's voice shook as she spoke. The inner ring, it is near. The heart lies at the center. If I reach it, can reset the temple. I can make gravity normal again. And if you don't? Evan asked quietly. She looked away. Then the temple collapses. Everything inside breaks. Her hand rested on her chest for a moment, where her royal crest should have been. It was gone, torn away during the first days of chaos. Without it, she looked less like a princess and more like a lost girl trying very hard to be brave. I have tried before, she whispered. Every path shifted. Doors closed. Floors vanished. My guards died trying to protect me. I am the king's daughter. But I could do nothing. Her voice cracked at the last word. Evan did not give grand speeches. He did not say fate or destiny or galaxy. His strength came from simpler things. He touched the stone beside him, steady and calm despite the impossible world swirling around them. You're still here, he said. That means you haven't failed yet. She blinked, surprised at the plain answer. Humans, she had been told, were loud and dramatic. But this human was like deep water, quiet, strong, patient. In the silence between roars, she heard something inside him that was harder than the temple stone. He refused to quit. The Guardian's shadow swept across the drifting chambers. Evan tightened his grip on her wrist. Show me the way. They moved. Sometimes they swam. Sometimes they walked across ceilings. Sometimes they simply let the strange currents carry them. Nerissa guided by memory and instinct, tracing old priest paths she had learned as a child. Evan guided by pattern and timing, watching how gravity tilted and when it snapped back again. The temple kept trying to break them apart. At one turn, the pull shifted without warning, and Nerissa was yanked upward toward a spinning arch of shattered stone. Evan reacted faster than thought. He grabbed her, pulled her down up sideways, whatever direction existed at that second. The impact that should have crushed her helmet met his shoulder instead. Pain burst through him. He gritted his teeth and kept going. She stared at him, shocked. You were almost torn apart. Why didn't you let go? He gave the smallest shrug. Didn't come here to let go. That was the moment something changed inside her. He was not bound to her by crown or command. He was not her subject. He could leave. He could save himself. Yet he chose not to. He chose her again and again, in every dangerous second. Human stubbornness, she realized, was not loud. It was quiet and unstoppable. They reached a wide circular chamber at last. In the center floated a massive stone throne turned upside down, surrounded by rings of light. From it, lines of glowing script ran like rivers into the walls, feeding the whole temple. The water here hummed with power. The pull of gravity twisted constantly, gentle one moment, crushing the next. Nerissa's breath caught. The heart. Room. The throne was not meant for sitting. It was a lock. Only royal blood could open it. Before she could move, the water behind them darkened. A huge shadow filled the entrance. Cracked red eyes burned through the gloom. The Guardian slid into the chamber, slow and terrible, dragging broken gravity. With it like chains. It had followed them. It would not let its prisoner reach the heart. Nerissa's hands shook. We cannot fight it here. If the heart breaks. Evan stepped in front of her. He did not shout. He did not beat his chest. He simply placed himself between her and the monster, because that was where he chose to stand. Then it doesn't break, he said. The Guardian surged. Gravity folded. The temple screamed. Evan braced himself against the pull while Nerissa struggled. Toward the throne, every step a war. The stone beneath her feet became the ceiling, then the wall, then nothing at all. She slipped, caught herself, slipped again. The Guardian lunged past Evan toward her. He grabbed its jagged stone plate with both hands. His suit alarms screamed. His muscles burned. The beast was made of temple and anger and old power, yet for one impossible moment, human will held it back. Go! He shouted, one of the few loud words he had used. Nerissa ran. She reached the throne, cut her palm on its sharp edge, and pressed her blood into the carved crest. Light exploded outward. The entire temple shook in rage and fear. Like a living thing realizing it was losing control, the Guardian tore free of Evan's grip and turned all its hatred toward the princess. Evan moved without thinking. If the temple wanted her, it would have to take him first. Asterisk. The temple did not simply shake, it turned inside out. When Nerissa's blood touched the throne, the rings of light around it burst open like a storm of suns. Ancient lines in the walls lit at once, racing outward in every direction. Gravity tore loose from its old paths. Up and down shattered like broken mirrors. For a long second, nothing had a direction. Stones floated. Water twisted into spirals. Whole rooms drifted away like drifting islands. It felt as if the universe had forgotten which way it was supposed to go. Nerissa clung to the throne, her hand still pressed into the glowing crest. The light crawled up her arm, wrapping her like threads of fire and moonlight. She did not scream. She did not run. She stood straight, even as everything else lost balance. She was the king's daughter. She was the key. The Guardian howled. The sound punched through the water, shaking loose whole pillars. The red cracks across its stone hide blazed brighter than ever. This place had been its world for ages beyond counting. It had been warden, judge, executioner. Now the lock was opening, and it could feel control slipping away. It chose rage. It surged straight toward the princess. Evan did not think, and he did not plan. Some choices live under thought. He launched himself between her and the beast just as gravity snapped sideways again. He hit the Guardian's stone plates, shoulder first. Pain streaked through his ribs, but he held on like a man gripping the edge of a cliff. Keep going. He called back to her. She did not answer. She couldn't. Light wrapped her throat like a shining collar as the heart of the temple connected with her blood. Symbols appeared and faded across her skin in long streams. The temple was listening to her now, and arguing back. The Guardian twisted, dragging Evan with it. They spun through the broken chamber as gravity flipped again and again. Evan slammed against a pillar, then a wall, then the ceiling, which was not a ceiling anymore. Every impact tried to knock the air from his lungs. His suit clamped harder to protect him, but alarms flashed red across his display. He did not let go. The Guardian thrashed harder, cracking chains of light that had begun to rise around the throne. It wanted one thing only: to stop the rightful blood before she could command the heart. Evan finally lost his grip. He was thrown upward or downward. He couldn't tell anymore. The world became layers of motion and light. Bridges turned like wheels, floors rolled like waves. Fallen statues swam past like giants in slow dreams. Somewhere through the chaos, he saw the princess still standing at the throne, wrapped in blinding light. Small and unyielding, he had never seen anything so fragile look so strong. The Guardian lunged again. This time, it did not go for Evan. It went for her. Nerissa saw it coming through the haze of power. For one frozen instant, she knew she could let go of the heart and run, and everything would end, one way or another. But she did not let go. I am not your prisoner, she whispered. The throne answered. Light burst outward in a great tidal ring. Gravity collapsed and reformed at once. Suddenly the temple had tides, invisible waves of pull that rolled through every hall in rhythm, like the beating of a massive heart. Up and down came and went in pulses. Evan understood first. He had lived with tides all his life. He timed them. He pushed off just as the next wave surged. riding it like an invisible current. The world snapped around him, sideways, then forward, then sharply down, carrying him faster than swimming ever could. He shot across the chamber, straight toward the Guardian's head. The flare is all he had left. He pulled it free and struck it. White fire burst into the water, not burning, but blinding, a miniature star screaming into the darkness. The Guardian reared back, its cracked eyes seared by sudden light. For the first time since waking, it hesitated. That was enough. The next gravity wave hit. Evan slammed into Nerissa, wrapping one arm tight around her waist. The throne rejected her. The connection severed in an explosion of shining lines that cut the room like spears of glass. Rings of stone ripped apart. Towers snapped loose and spun away into darkness. The temple was collapsing, not down, not up. In every direction at once. Evan anchored his harness to hers in one fast, practiced motion. He had no idea which way safety lay. He only knew one thing: they were not leaving each other. "Hold on to me," he said quietly. She did not argue. She did not command. She simply obeyed, trusting him completely for the first time. Gravity surged again, stronger than before. The world fell upward. They were swept through breaking halls and shattering bridges, past drifting bodies of old guards, and fragments of a prison that had once thought itself eternal. The Guardian roared behind them, swallowed by collapsing stone and wild gravity tides. Light burst ahead. The upward sea opened, a doorway of blue and silver, where the temple's strange water bled into the normal world beyond. Evan tightened his grip, the last thought in his mind before they were thrown through that blinding crack between worlds was not about himself, nor about legends, nor even about the sea. It was simple, human, stubborn. "Don't let go." Asterisk. They broke through the bright wall of water like arrows shot from the heart of a storm. Then everything went quiet. The strange upward sea that had pulled them into the sky no longer dragged at their bodies. Gravity remembered itself. The world had weight again. Evan and Nerissa fell, truly fell this time, down through cool air and crashing spray, hitting the real ocean with a deep rushing splash. For a moment, the surface closed over them, and all sound returned. The hiss of waves, the cry of distant birds, the wild beating of their own hearts. They rose together. Evan's suit pulled them upward, the last of its power humming weakly. They burst into sunlight. Real sunlight, not temple light, warm, golden, alive. The sky above them was wide and open, instead of heavy with reversed oceans. Nerissa gasped, not in pain, in wonder. The upward sea was gone. The towering column of water that had stretched into the clouds was collapsing, raining back into the true ocean in shining curtains. Broken stone towers of the temple fell like distant islands sinking for the first and last time. The strange prison that had held her vanished piece by piece into foam. The curse had ended. They drifted on the waves, the world rocking gently beneath them. Evan could feel his strength fading. His suit alarms buzzed faintly, then fell silent. Not fixed, just tired like him. His shoulder burned, his ribs ached, but he kept his arms tight around the princess until he was certain she would not slip away. "Evan," she whispered. He turned his head slowly. Her glowing marks were fading now, leaving soft pale skin beneath. She looked less like a trapped legend and more like a living girl again. Alive, breathing, real. "You did it," she said. "We escaped." He gave a tired half-smile. "You did it. I just didn't let go." From the distant cliffs came sound, horns, voices, shouts in the language of Thalasser, full of disbelief and joy. Long, sleek boats sliced across the waves toward them, bright banners whipping in the wind. Soldiers stood at their rails, pointing, yelling, crying without shame. The princess was home. Strong arms lifted them from the sea. Evan's boots touched real wooden deck again, and for the first time since entering the upward ocean, the ground stayed where it belonged. The world no longer twisted beneath him. Nerissa pulled free of helping hands and dropped to her knees beside him. "Careful," a healer warned. She ignored them. She pressed her forehead to his helmet softly, her voice barely more than breath. "Open it, please. I want to see you." He hesitated. His suit had protected him from pressure and cold and impossible forces. But now, for the first time in the whole journey, he felt safe enough to release it. He unsealed the helmet. Cool. Salty air washed over his face. His hair stuck to his forehead. He looked exhausted, bruised, and alive. She studied his human face like a rare treasure. For days she had spoken only to stone in silence. Now she saw warm brown eyes watching her with quiet concern instead of pride or fear. The Tide King came then. He was tall as waves and stern as storms, wearing armor that shone like wet pearl. Soldiers bowed deeply as he passed, but he did not look at them. He looked only at his daughter, and then at the human lying wounded beside her. Nerissa stood and, to everyone's shock, did not bow. Instead, she turned, took Evan's hand in both of hers, and raised it. "This human saved me," she said clearly. "Not for gold, not for power, not because anyone ordered him. He stayed when every force in that cursed place tried to tear us apart. He refused to leave me behind." Silence fell across the boats. The king's hard face softened. He went to one knee. Kings of Thalasar did not kneel, but he did, before the man who had brought back his child. He bowed his head and spoke into the sea breeze. "Human of Earth," he said, "the crown of Thalasar owes you more than words." Evan blinked, surprised. "Just let your people stay safe," he said quietly, "and maybe rest would be nice." Nerissa laughed then, a bright sound filled with sun and relief instead of fear. Later, when healers worked on Evan's wounds and music rose across the harbor, the princess slipped something small into her hand. It was his broken dive glove, torn during the struggle with the Guardian. She pressed it to her heart like a promise, because legends would spread. They always did. They would say the upward ocean finally fell. They would say the cursed temple shattered. They would speak of light and roaring stone and gravity gone mad. But the true story was simpler. A human diver would not let go of an alien princess's hand, and the galaxy, vast, proud, full of old rules, learned something quiet and powerful that day. Sometimes, the strongest magic is not power or blood or ancient machines. Sometimes it is simply this: humans do not leave the ones they choose to save.